The Last Journey. Chapter 7.
It was soul-satisfying to watch that planet being consumed by the sun. Talking with Captain Redbeard, he said something that brought me up.
Captain Stevens, several years ago, I lost a team under similar circumstances. Do you think it's another artifact trap?
I responded, I don't know, but we could check it out. Where did this happen? He indicated that it was hundreds of light years away. I asked, what is your top speed? He replied,
Ultralight 12. But there is a wormhole just 2 days at UL10 that would take within a light year.
Redbeard, give me 10 minutes, then lead the way. I ran to the bridge. Number 1, we're going to follow Captain Redbeard to a wormhole. Barbara, you are going to command the ship during the transition. Her head snapped around.
Me?
I smiled, yes. You, my dear Lieutenant. Commander Steele. It'll be fun. Tall, signal Captain Redbeard that we are ready. The ship of the Sabre team of the Genkrin conglomerate was named the XXY Shellowbird, at least, that's the translation the computer gave us. We reached the wormhole and paused, and I told Barbara to take the command chair and take us through the wormhole.
XXY Shellowbird, we are ready. Lead the way.
Barbara commanded that we enter the wormhole, and in 16 nanoseconds, we exited the other end. The Shellowbird was waiting for us, and so were 3 ships of a design I had never seen before. The only thing I could use to describe those ships was a conch shell. The 3 ships just hung there blocking our way. Captain Redbeard said we would have to negotiate our way out, but I told Tall to hail the ships. This is Captain David Stevens of the USS Constitution of the United System Federation Navy. If you don't move out of my way, I will move you, and I guarantee you won't like it. Silence. Silence. I said, Number 1, TT torpedo into the first ship. Suddenly I heard over the comm.
Captain Stevens, you would destroy this ship?
I replied, get the hell out of my way, or you will find out. The 3 ships parted to allow us to move past their blockade. Captain Redbeard said,
That's a tactic I have never tried.
I replied, I negotiate from a position of strength. I do not negotiate any other way. I asked, who are those guys? The captain replied,
They call themselves the Archons.
well, the Archons. Again. I've run across those beasties before. The captain asked,
Good, bad, or indifferent?
not good. Definitely evil. Well, let's get to the place we're. Please. Their response was on the whiny side.
Teleport a dog.
That was my order. Teleport a dog to the artifact. The whiny voice replied.
Yes, sir.
A few minutes later.
Captain, I teleported a German shepherd named Zimmerman to the artifact.
I said, thank you. Look, I know that you love those critters. I will try to see that Zimmerman is returned to you none the worse for wear. Okay? The voice lost its whiny tinge.
Yes, sir.
Kate in the sensor lab reported.
Captain Zimmerman is off on his trip. I'm tracking the tachyon particles 10 degrees starboard, sir.
Barb, follow that dog. She replied,
Woof woof, sir.
and everyone laughed. We drove on at UL-16, attempting to keep the trace until we came upon a second artifact. This one, however, was guarded by one of the conch shell-shaped ships that challenged us.
Unknown ship.
Identify yourself.
This is the USS Constitution of the United System Federation Navy, Captain David Stevens. Heave 2. We are tracking a pulse and have no time for you. I heard.
Captain Stevens, stand and fight.
I replied, I don't have time for this. TT torpedo, fire. The conch shell ship suddenly erupted in flame amidships and surrendered. We continued to follow Zimmerman as he traveled onward. Hank kept up our charts for us to be able to return home someday. We followed Zimmerman's tachyon particle stream for about a parsec and came across another artifact, then another, and another, until we came across a planet. This planet was a lush green ball covered with vegetation and seas, rivers and mountain ridges. Yet, as before, we found a building like the ones we found on the first planet. I teleported down with a team, 4 security crewmen with laser rifles, George and Shirley, 2 other engineers, and Zimmerman's handler. George, Shirley, and the other engineers set to work to demolish the prison cell wall. It took 2 hours to open the prison cell, and Zimmerman ran out to his handler. Dogs are wonderful animals. Zimmerman was overjoyed to be free and never held a grudge. In the prison cell were many decaying bodies, just like the others. In time, Captain Redbeard arrived and identified his lost team. He set up a grave marker as we had done on the previous planet. We divided the planet to search for more prison cells. The captain reported that he had found 8 cells and had opened them, buried the dead, and set up markers as we had before. The Constitution found 7 cells, buried the remains, and set up markers honoring the unknown dead. Then we met with the XXY Shallow Bird and coordinated a search and destroy mission to rid the system of the artifacts still around the planet. As the XXY Shallow Bird and the Constitution worked to complete our mission, a flotilla of 12 of the conch-shaped ships attacked our 2 ships. T-Sun ordered.
Shields. Captain, we are under attack.
I took the command chair. Lasers and torpedoes. Fire at will. Take out the lead ship. The conch ships had assembled to surround the XXY Shallow Bird. I ordered. Barb, put us between the conch ships and the Shallow Bird. All weapons fire. Weapons, TT torpedoes. Fire at will. I heard a gasp. T-Sun shouted.
Captain, we are surrounded.
I replied. Good. They're concentrating on us, not the Shallow Bird. Barb, straight up, UL-10. The Archons had surrounded us in the galactic plane, but we could navigate in 3 dimensions. We ascended, and then I ordered a 180-degree turn to return, blasting the Archons with our plasma cannons. I muttered under my breath, O'Reilly, my old friend, this one is for you. And I ordered, T-Sun, Hank, plasma cannons. Take out the first and last ships. As we dived, the cannon team blasted the Archons as I had ordered, and the cowards fled, leaving behind 2 ships burning wreckage. The Archon captain surrendered, begging for mercy.
Captain Stevens, Captain Redbeard, mercy, please.
I heard Redbeard saying.
Can you repair your ship?
They replied.
We have called for assistance. We will be able to survive until help arrives.
Redbeard replied.
We grant you mercy. Warn the rest of your erbsinerty, raise that we are destroying these inhuman traps and will continue to do so. Ye take no erbsinerty from anyone as we endeavor to complete our mission.
I continued the warning, next time, we will annihilate you. Do you get my drift? The Archon captains replied.
We do understand. We will warn our people.
I added, if you have any allies, you had better warn them as well. We continued to destroy the artifacts, one after another, and the prison cells. Between the XXY Shallow Bird and the Constitution, we destroyed 330 artifacts and 16 prison cells. We had been allied with the XXY Shallow Bird for about 7 months, and I felt it was time to try to find home. I said, Hank, I know we've been swamped, but how much work have you done on finding Thanatos? He replied.
Not much, Captain.
I told him, take the time now. I want to know that we can get home. I added, if you have any allies, you had better warn them as well. We continued to destroy the artifacts, one after another, and the prison cells. Between the XXY Shallow Bird and the Constitution, we destroyed 330 artifacts and 16 prison cells. We had been allied with the XXY Shallow Bird for about 7 months, and I felt it was time to try to find home. I said, Hank, I know we've been swamped, but how much work have you done on finding Thanatos? He replied.
Aye, sir.
We bid goodbye to the XXY Shallow Bird and her crew. As we parted, I heard.
Captain Stevens, come cease and fair winds.
I was floored. Computer, explain the greeting from Captain Redbeard.
Captain Redbeard did not say what you heard. What the captain said was the greeting that his race uses in such situations. It has no direct translation in English, so I substituted your greeting that you would understand.
Computer, thank you. Then I heard.
Captain, I am a machine, thank you is unnecessary.
Computer, accept my thank you as my appreciation of your performance. Again I heard.
Aye, sir.
I asked, Hank, have you found Thanatos? He replied.
I believe so. Just there.
As he pointed at the monitor. I ordered, let's go there. Barbara, maximum speed, please. And we began our journey at UL-19. I called George, George, we are going to be burning UL-19 for quite some time. We'll augment your section as needed. Then to T-Sun, number 1, get together with the section chiefs and prepare an augmentation team to assist engineering. She replied,
Aye aye, sir.
I told the sensor lab to carefully check for those artifacts as we raced to Thanatos. However, another phenomenon brought us to an abrupt halt. There before our ship, there appeared the image of a warrior. The image was 90 feet tall, with bulging muscles, long gray hair, and a beard, dressed as a Viking, horned helmet, javelin, shield, and a hammer hanging on his belt. He hefted the javelin as if to throw it at our ship. We heard through the monitor.
Surrender or be annihilated.
I asked, how do you suppose he did that? I returned to the monitor, do your worst. Kate traced that signal. Suddenly the Vikings vanished, to be replaced by a very small ship.
Captain, I am Jor-El of the Clankward Compendium. The illusion you saw was only to get you to stop. I need help.
I asked, how can we help? He replied,
I'm lost. I don't know where I am. Can you help me?
I replied, we will have to compare star charts. Are you prepared to do that? He said he was and transmitted his star charts. However, the charts were in a format incompatible with our computer system, so I tasked T-Sun and Hank to manually transfer the data to our system, then see if we could help him in any way. I asked Jor-El if he needed any other assistance, and he said that he was running short on sustenance. I asked him what he needed regarding food and drink, and he said he only ate a meat substitute and plant life. Consequently, we asked him to dock his ship in our shuttle bay, and we would try to help him with his dietary needs. Jor-El's ship was smaller than one of our shuttles, and when Jor-El stepped out of his ship, we saw that he was just about 3 feet tall. Jor-El was a perfectly formed miniature human being. I took him to our replicator and told the computer to give him a list of foods we could provide and asked him to explain to the computer as best he could what he would need and prefer. He said that he would take the food back to his ship. He was intimidated by our size. I told George to put a force field around his ship and advised Jor-El that he would have to call us to be released from the force field. He understood and agreed. T-Sun and Hank worked on the star charts from Jarl, attempting to put them into a format compatible with our computer system. The two worked 12 hours a day for 6 days before announcing that they had integrated Jor-El star charts into our system. But they had first copied our charts into a separate file before integrating the two sets to prevent the possibility of compromising our verified charts. They found that Jarl was loster than we were.
Laster. Darn well, I ain't gonna let some highfalutin slob mess up my storytelling.
Talking with Jor-El, we decided to continue our exploration of the Bada Quadrant, mapping as we go, and he would stay with us until we could point him to his home system. As we progressed, Jor-El became more at ease with our taller crewmen, even admiring the 5.5-foot tall female crewman. We had scanned his ship and determined that there was nothing to fear from our guest or his ship. He was a pleasant little chap and even began to flirt with Commander Steele. Slowly, she began to reciprocate. Barbara asked to speak with me privately. In my ready room, Barbara confessed being infatuated with our diminutive guest.
Except for his size, he seems to be a lot like you, sir. Would it be wrong to explore a relationship with him?
I said, Barbara, I see no reason not to explore such a relationship. You might ask T-Vass to do a DNA comparison. Just a suggestion. She started to turn but stopped.
Permission to speak freely, sir.
I replied, granted. She stepped toward me and kissed me.
Thank you, Captain. I'm sorry, I'm so clueless about relationships.
I laughed. Barb, we're all clueless about relationships but learn by asking, seeing, and experiencing. You could read a book. She asked.
Oh, what book?
For Women Only and For Men Only, by Shanti Feldhahn, are two excellent books. Women Are From Venus, and Men Are From Mars, by Dr. John Gray. There are many, many books. Most can be of some help. Some, like the two I mentioned, are tremendously helpful. I'm sure you can find what you need in the ship's library computer. Jor-El came to my ready room and asked to speak to me.
Captain, as long as I am with your crew, is there something constructive I can do?
I asked, what do you think you could do? He replied,
I'm a good pilot, navigation, and helm. I maintain my own ship and engineering, and I could probably get into places your people can't.
I replied, all right, you side saddle with Commander Steele and Commander Peterson. Show me what you can do. There was a silly smile on his face.
Commander Steele, yes sir.
I lifted my left eyebrow. Do you have feelings for Commander Steele? A sheepish grin graced his face.
Yes sir. I do.
I said, Jor-El, you're the captain of your own ship. My name is David. He replied,
This is your ship, and I want to be part of your crew, if only temporarily. May I still call you captain?
I nodded, and he left the ready room to take up his post, side saddling with Commander Steele. Exiting the ready room, I asked, Hank, have you discovered Thanatos yet? He replied,
I think so, sir.
and he pointed out toward a spot on his screen. I commanded, let's go. UL-16. Steele, let Captain Jor-El pilot for half shift with your supervision. She smiled.
Yes, sir.
I said, Hank, chart our way there. We drove toward Thanatos at UL-16 until we happened upon another artifact, all stop. Jor-El put us at 100 yards of that thing. Kate, scan that thing, tell me if I'm right in thinking it is another artifact. Kate answered.
Yes, sir. It is another artifact.
I ordered, T-Sun, let's see if we can find the hub planet. Send Zimmerman over there and track him. Hank, Barb, you know the drill, show Jor-El our routine for discovering and destroying these traps. They replied.
Aye, sir.
T-Sun, you have the con. We found 3 of the horror prison traps that seemed to be placed in a straight line toward Thanatos. The traps took in more than a 33,000 light-year plot in space. We could not determine the age of the artifacts, but we loathed each and every one of them for the hell they meant to innocent, and guilty, explorers. As we tracked Zimmerman to the hub planet, we soon discovered more dead and dying explorers in the hub prisons. Unfortunately, we were too late to save the dying. We stood back and blasted the prisons, then hunted down the artifacts and blasted them into shards of twisted metal, flying through space, eventually landing on the hub planet or burning up in its atmosphere. As we approached the last artifact in this trap, I told Barbara, Barb, teach Captain Jor-El to hug the donkey before we blast this thing to smithereens. Before the hug the donkey lesson could begin, we were confronted by huge conch-shaped ships. We were challenged.
Constitution, Captain Stevens, you have destroyed 3 of our criminal imprisonment systems. Prepare to be boarded.
I responded, I don't think so. Prepare to fight. And the dogfight was on. I ordered, Barb, it's a good time to teach Jarl to hug the donkey, don't you think? She jumped at the chance and began her lesson. We swung around the Archon ship so close the Archon could not get a hit. But there came a time when the shields of the Archon ship prevented us from using that tactic any longer. Our attempts to use our TT torpedoes were met with a screen that prevented teleportation. We even tried to use hyperspace teleportation, but even this was futile. Their screens were too sophisticated. Then George told me that he had completed his study of the teleportation system used by the Archon traps. I asked what good that would do, and he replied that the Archon systems might be vulnerable to their own teleportation system. I asked, but what do we send them? Captain Jarl piped up.
Here I am, send me.
I ordered, Barb, take the captain down to Kate, to see what he might be able to do. And off the 2 went. Barbara stammered.
No. Not you.
He replied.
I can go places others can't go. We need the advantage, sweetheart.
But I need you.
She answered. He said.
Honey, we're both members of this crew and ship. That's where our loyalties lie. We need to obey our captain.
As they entered the sensor lab, Kate showed them the configuration of the shop and assured them that the Archon teleportation system would send Jor-El precisely where he needed to go. George walked in, and between the 4 there, they determined the best place to send Jarl. Then Jor-El, George, and Barbara walked into engineering and set about preparing Jor-El's adventure. They had the replicator produce a protective suit for the diminutive captain, complete with shield, laser, unicorder, radio, and canned air if needed. As he prepared to be teleported, Barbara wrung her hands and wept.
Come back to me. Please.
He smiled at her.
I will be back in a little while.
George said.
Your Unicorder has everything we know about these ships. Good luck, my friend.
Barbara kissed him and stood back, and George sent the little captain on his way. They noted that Jarl had appeared aboard the conch ship in a deserted corridor. It wasn't until the battle had been won that I learned what our fearless Captain Jarl had done.